welcome to today's class. We're going to be looking at the advanced mat work sequence of 34 of the original exercises and doing 7 out of the 34. Let's see how we go. So the original sequence starts with the 100, starts on the floor, but those of you that know me, like I know that I like to mobilise everything and warm everything up before we even come down to the floor. So let's just have a little bit of a twiddling with the fingers, making some tarantulas, stroke sea anemones, maybe circling the wrists around, maybe wiggling the shoulders around a little bit. And at the same time I'm just peeling through my feet, maybe standing on one leg, briefly circling the ankle, the foot around, focusing on hands and feet, ankles and wrists. Because you need that strength, you need that blood flow to those areas don't forget this is an advanced sequence, and although we generally work on all of these things in a slightly different order and we go about it a slightly different way, still very relevant. We still need our strength here, making a scrunch and a stretch the hands apart. Brilliant. And then let's have the feet nice and wide, arms are up, and we're going to take a big swing. Nice and relaxed, breath out as you go down, breath in as you come back up, making sure the knees are going over the toes, relaxing the head, adding on to this a big double shoulder roll with really relaxed arms, soft elbows. If that's too much, just take a big shoulder roll, double shoulder roll going backwards, bring the arms up to the top again, circling back. Getting a little bit warmer, a little bit of blood flow going around. And then let's keep the arms out to the side. I'm going to go sideways and shift the rib cage forwards and backwards. Again, breath out, breath in as you lift the chest, tucking that pelvis under, lifting the chest. Breath out, breath in, keep the arms out to the side, reaching from side to side. My goal here is to shift the rib cage from side to side. I'm just bending one knee as I go. Last one in the rib cage, clasping the hands, taking a great big circle all the way round in front of you. And then changing direction. Notice as you do this, make it nice and big. Hopefully your rib cage will be going in the opposite direction, but then purposefully take it in the opposite direction. So the hands are to one side, pushing my ribs to the other side. The hands are forward, my ribs are back. Hands to the side, ribs to the opposite side, and then I'm bringing the rib cage forwards and the hands back. So seen from above, head, shoulders, rib cage is drawing a circle, and my hands are drawing another circle. It's called the bread maker. Hopefully getting everything nice and warmed up in that thoracic spine. Let's do the same thing with our hips. Placing the hands on the ribs to keep the rib cage lifted off of the hips. Creating a bit of space for the hips to be able to move. Soft knees, circling all the way around. Changing direction, a couple of times in each direction, 3 or 4 circles. Wonderful. Feet and knees together, sticking the bottom out. This is my mobilising warm up it's my flavour of the month. It's been so for quite some time. I like this one because yes, we're moving the knees around a little bit, keeping that tolerance in the knees to be able to move. We're keeping the back in its natural curve, so practicing our hinging at the hip, not collapsing. But the main thing is the weight through the feet and the ankles. So rolling to the outside edge of one, the inside edge of the other, the balls of the feet, the heels of the feet, changing direction, giving your feet, the soles of your feet, a little bit of a massage in the floor. Wonderful. Mobilising the spine. I'm going to go sideways again. Lifting the chest, looking up to the ceiling, keep looking up, arch the back, stick the butt out, maybe place the hands on the legs to help you unravel the spine all the way down. The head is the last thing, and then draw the belly button in to unravel back up. Keep flowing, keep moving. It doesn't have to be as big as I'm going. You could just keep it a little bit smaller, only need to go to here. But it does what it says on the tin. It's a chest lift followed by a back lift. Scooping that tummy in each time, breathing, staying nice and relaxed. Perfect. We are going to take some side bends. Let's go a little bit wider than, actually no, let's go just outside shoulder width apart and just gently reaching down the side, starting to lift the other arm up at the side seam of the body, getting a little bit deeper. As you lift that elbow up, if that's as long as it's comfortable, make sure you relax that hand. It doesn't need to be stuck to the side. Just loosen it up. Think about getting the elbow nice and high if you can. And notice with this, no change in the weight through your feet. Stay equally weighted through both feet. So what I mean by that is not a shift over and a shift over. The hips and the waist stay still, but we're taking that lovely side bend. Let's go all the way up with the elbow and then extend the arm straight up to the ceiling and coming upright from there over to the other side. Reaching over, which should help you to clear that shoulder so it's not uncomfortable there, taking that straight arm or straightening that arm up to the ceiling in a straight line. We're going to go again, over, elbow, straight arm. Now just let that arm come across, so it's just continuing that lovely curve in the whole of the spine and coming upright. Over to the side, elbow high, straight arm, stretch it across. And this time let's roll all the way round, halfway down. Keep that arm up, halfway down, as in head sort of level with your knees. Swap the arms over. So leading sideways with one arm, change arms, try and look underneath that arm as you come up. It's a much stronger stretch than if you just lift your head and then bring the arm up. And then when you're ready, if you want to, all the way to the floor. Same thing, just a bit bigger. Make sure you're breathing, make sure you're relaxing, mobilising the spine. Breath in, breath out in the base of the swing. Breath in, breath out. I'm going to go one more. Breath out. I'm never very good with my breathing, so I'm too busy talking. But I feel that that's done the sides quite nicely. Last part of our mobilising, just general body warm-up, is our rotation of the spine. Think about this. So keep your head facing forwards. Keep watching the screen. Think about this on 3 levels. First of all, think about, so imagine there's 3 lines drawn across your body. The first one is the line from shoulder to shoulder. Get that really rotating around. So as you're looking forwards, when I'm pulling one elbow back, I can see my other shoulder in my periphery vision. And in fact, it's coming underneath my chin. The next level is your hips. Same thing, the hips are rotating around the spine. Arms are just relaxed, they're whacking the body at the end of the rotation. I'm not placing them there. And then that third line is the end of my leggings, my ankles, they're rotating around as well. So I'm going onto the outside edge and the inside edge of both feet. Finally, add looking behind you. Actively look behind you. Hopefully you'll notice now that the action of looking behind you just gives that rotation a little bit of an extra tweak, whereas if you start it at the beginning, it's not so good. Hopefully you felt all that rotation as it was going on. Perfect. Okay, we're going to do a standing, some single leg work. It's very similar to what we've been doing fairly recently, as in the pelvis, but it's single leg standing work, so good for our balance. But we're prepping for something that we're going to do on the floor, lying on our side. So I'd like you to go, obviously you don't need to go sideways, but if you were in class I'd have you sideways so that you could see what I could see what you were doing. The goal is to keep your pelvis and your spine absolutely still. And we're going to release one leg. So we've gone from two legs together. We're releasing one leg forwards, flexing the foot, keeping that leg nice and straight. Noticing and feeling with one hand on your tummy, one hand in your lower back, that there's no change. So there's no collapsing. I'm not trying to lift the leg too high. There's no softening of the knee. Nice straight leg, flex foot, and then we're going to sweep that leg back. This is a little bit awkward. You will get stuck to your mat, especially if you're in bare feet and you're on a yoga mat. But I just want you to extend the leg. So you're basically keeping the foot in contact with the floor. Extend the leg behind you, point your toes, and then reverse it to come back again. Flex and lift the leg slightly. Sweep the leg back. You might just want to very, very slightly pitch the weight forwards onto the ball of the foot of the standing leg, just to ease that stress on the lower back. If you need to hang on to something, please hang on to the standing leg with the standing leg side, that's absolutely fine, and place the other hand, keep the hand in the small of the back. So notice whether there's any movement in the pelvis. There shouldn't be any movement. That's why I've tucked my t-shirt in today, to give you full view of what's going on in the pelvis. But you might feel, as that leg sweeps back, a bit of an activation in this buttock. That would be a good thing. And that's what the buttock is meant to do as you sweep the leg back, so that's fine. Whew, quite hard work on the standing leg, as always. So when we're standing, it will create a different challenge to when we're lying on our side later on. So from the feet together, standing up nice and tall, flexing the foot, swinging the leg forwards. I'm not trying to lift it too high because I don't want anything to change. Sweep the leg through and underneath. Keep the toes in contact, point the foot behind. Notice with your pelvis, is there any change? I'm looking in my monitor. It looks like I'm tilting my back a little bit, and I possibly am because I'm quite lordotic. So I'm going to just be really conscious of sending that tailbone down, trying not to take the leg too far back, and definitely not lifting the leg off the floor. And just pitching my weight forward. So I'm continuing my plumb line, but it just goes over the ball of the foot. Noticing that this buttock is firing up on the way back. I'm keeping both legs straight. It's quite tough. Good. We're then going to take our feet together, facing forwards. You probably were already, but again in class I would have you facing forwards. I want you to think about the tissue box of your torso, so your shoulders and your hips being level with each other, so no rotation at all, and staying at the same height as each other, so no shortening in the waist, no twisting. It's a pristine tissue box. I've got a new name for it actually. It's called the torso box. Yeah, I think you might like that one. So we're going to spread the thumbs and the fingers apart and place those on that torso box. And we're going to just take the leg out to the side and bring it back in again. And I'm getting stuck to my mat. Swap to the other side. In fact, I'm going to get my mat out of the way because that is stopping me from doing this particularly well. So I'm really trying to keep everything in the same place. It's tough work, as always, on that standing leg. Notice, just have a little look down, when the leg slides out to the side, does your pelvis twist at all? Do you tilt on your shoulders? Are you shortening on one side? Give me a nice straight leg, so the legs stay straight all the way through actually, and a pointed foot with a straight instep. So no curly feet. That would be a curly foot, or that would be pressure on that foot and that ankle. So keep it all in line. Stay on one side. Think about your plumb line being over this standing leg. Check with your hands, so what's going on in your torso box. No change at the waist, so I'm not shortening one side or the other. No twisting either way. My plumb line, if I put one hand on my top, above my chest, one hand on my belly, and that straight line goes down to the ball of the foot that I'm standing on. And then I'm just lifting the leg at the side, this abduction, as far as I can without any change. It doesn't go very far. If you try and lift too far, you will distort somewhere else. If you're not over this plumb line, you'll lift the leg and then you'll fall back off it. I'm hugely exaggerating, it won't be that bad. And let's swap sides. You're going to notice some work in the glutes and the buttocks and the hips. And I'm definitely noticing it. So keeping that ankle nice and straight, foot extended, knees, tops of the feet facing forwards, checking everything is in place. This amount of connection, so I have to be braced in my torso. This amount of connection is what we want when we're on the floor. That's why quite often in my classes, well, every week in my classes, we do something that's standing, that's also a preparation for the floor work, that's totally relevant to when you're on the floor. When you're on the floor, you'll find that your pelvis will want to lift and your torso will change its shape, but that's what we want to avoid if we can. Perfect. Okay. So we had that's our prep for our side kick where we're lying on the floor and some abduction. Great. Let's take some dance stretches. So what I'm planning to do with these classes is introduce. I don't do all 34 of that advanced mat work sequence, but I do. I can't remember how many of them. Maybe 24. So we're going to just introduce a few of them each week. And something like this, my dance stretches as I call it, is very relevant to some of the movements. So take your feet really nice and wide. Actually, I'm going to go back on my mat. Really wide, insteps parallel, taking one arm up to the ceiling. Turn your upper body only, keep your hips and your legs and feet facing forwards. I'm only turning to the corner as far as I can. This arm is staying by my ear. I'm going to lengthen forwards towards that corner. It's a strong stretch at the back of the leg that you're reaching towards. Make sure you keep your chin tucked into the back of the neck, stays nice and long. I'm gluing my other arm by my side and then I'm relaxing all the way down. Taking hold of that lower leg, trying to get my head towards that knee on that leg. And then the next movement is to bend the other knee. That's the only bit that changes. Nothing else changes in your body, just bending that knee. And then you should really feel a difference in where you're feeling the stretch. If you don't feel the stretch now on your inside thigh of the straight leg and the one that you're lengthening your body along, take your feet much, much wider. So feet should be really wide. Make sure that bent knee is going over towards your little toes. Then it should be relatively easy to lift up the same arm as the straight leg, pull on that straight leg with the other hand to get your shoulders round as far as you can. Try and look up to the ceiling past that hand and then unravel, relax in the middle, bend both knees, roll up through the spine, stacking the vertebrae one on top of the other. Really quite wide with those legs. Let's go on the other side. Arm is up by your ear. Your arms sort of stay in this position. Turning the shoulders only, lengthening forwards until you feel that biting point on the back of the leg, the hamstrings of the leg you're reaching towards. This is quite strong. Then you relax down that leg. This is even stronger. In the same place, in your hamstrings. Stay there with your upper body. Bend the other knee. Push that knee out over your little toe. The stretch should move to your inside thigh and across your back. across the sort of side seam of your back, and then we're hanging on to that leg, the lower leg. We're taking the same arm up to the ceiling, trying to rotate those shoulders round. At this point, your knee will want to roll in. Try and push it out. Bend everything, relax in the middle, roll up through the spine. We're going to do that one more time each side with breathing. You're going to take a breath in, a big breath in. As you move into the position, keep breathing in, because some of the things you're only going to bend your knee. That doesn't take a whole breath in. Do a full breath in. When you're breathing out, try and deepen the stretch. Relax into it a little bit more. I feel like I'm about to go into the side splits. I'm going to come in a little bit. So arm up, breath in, breath in, breath in. Holding it here, breathe out. Tweak the stretch. Breath in to relax the upper body down. Continue breathing in. Then take a nice breath out. Can you get that chest on your thigh? Bend your other knee. Breathing in. Continue breathing in. Fully breathe in. Then breathe out. Breathing in. Lift the arm up to the ceiling. Rotate those shoulders. Turn the head. Hold it there. Deepen this as you breathe out. This is the rotation in the shoulders we're looking at. Relax in the middle, bend both knees, breath in, breath out to roll up. Really let those arms hang. Twiddle the fingers, make sure you're nice and relaxed. Breath in, last time on the other side. Breath in, lengthen out through the crown of your head. Sit bones and going in the opposite direction, breathing out. Breath in to relax down. Breath out, hold it there. Can you go any lower? Relax in that breathing and in that stretch. Breath in, bend the other knee. Breathe in fully. Breathing out. Breath in, arm is going up to the ceiling. Breath out, rotate those shoulders, push that knee away. Breath in, back into the centre, rolling up. Breath out to come up to the top. Great, all of that was our warm-up, believe it or not. Before we do the first exercise of 7 of the classical mat sequence, which is going to be our press-ups. This is the original Pilates press up. It involves a roll down. It involves coming up and lifting the hips, coming into a downward dog, and then walking in and out of the press up position with your hands. So quite strong. It's at the end of the sequence of 34. But let's take our feet, not quite as wide as I would normally have, but maybe just slightly outside hip width apart. Looking straight ahead to start. We're going to do 3 sets or 2.5 sets of this with 3 press-ups when we're down there. So taking the chin down onto the chest, following that spider along the wall, along the floor to your toes. Head is relaxed. Then keeping the tummy pulled in, keeping that spine in neutral for as long as possible. Let the upper back roll over, round over. Soften the knees as soon as you need to. Try and keep the weight in the middle of both feet. For this first one, nod your head, shake your head, wiggle your shoulders around a little bit. Walking out about 4 walks into the plank. If you're super advanced, you would do your press-ups from here. I'm not super advanced, so I'm going to lower my knees, relax my toes. This is my version. This is already quite tough. Tucking the elbows in, the whole body moves to the floor for 3 times. If that's too much for you, draw those knees in closer. Make sure your shoulders are still over your fingertips, still tucking the elbows in for that 3rd one. Curling the toes under wherever those knees are, lifting the hips up. Take a sneaky little downward dog stretch for those calves. Walk the hands back to the feet, soft knees, roll up through the spine, pushing the pubic bone forwards. I'm going to go again. We're going to go again 2 more sets. So follow the spider down the wall, to the floor, to your feet. Keep the pelvis in neutral, pulling belly button in, pulling rib cage in. Allow those arms to hang. When you can't go any further, soften the knees, unravel. Imagine a conveyor belt, walking out with the other hand if you can. 4 walks with the hands, into the plank. Slide the shoulder blades down. This is a strong position. This should look the same as if you were standing up with your body position. Lower your knees, bring your knees in, keep the legs straight if you can, that would be amazing. 3 press ups. If you can't go all the way down to the floor without collapsing, just bend your elbows as much as you can. No reaching forwards with the head. That was my 3. Curl the toes under, lift the hips, walking back, keeping those legs straight if you can. Rolling up. Last one, we're not going to come back up this time. So rolling down. Pelvis in neutral. Keep the weight over your insteps rather than rocking too far back. I'm going to use my unnatural hand again. Holding it there. Beautifully straight legs, straight arms, head in the right position, abs tight, torso tight. That's what you need to be able to do that from your toes, hands and toes. Relaxing the feet if you're putting the knees down, and then all the way to the floor if you can. But actually the most important part of this is those elbows tucking in as opposed to flaring. Breathing would be a breath in as you lower, a breath out as you straighten. Let's just take the hips back onto the heels, have a little sway from side to side. Rolling up through the spine. Fantastic. So that's number 1 of our 7 exercises that we're going to cover today, the 7 classical mat exercises. Our next one is rolling like a ball, and we're going to just take our seated C curve to warm up for this, which again is something I do a lot in my classes, and it's this understanding, this ability to tuck your t-shirt in because it's hanging out at the back, but to scoop that lower tummy, really scoop that lower tummy, which creates this C curve. It's a shallow C curve, it's not a great big C curve, and then coming up and sitting tall. There's also this sense of when you're here and your spine is in its natural curves, you're right on top of your sit bones, and if I wobble from side to side, I can really feel those sit bones making contact. As soon as I scoop my tummy and I tuck that pelvis under as much as I can, I go behind my sit bones, I go onto my sacrum, and that's the shape, that's the bit, that's the curve that we want to create, to the point where you should be able to balance. And then obviously rolling like a ball will be part of that, staying in that position, staying fixed in that position. Couple of options here. This is the classical mat one, where you're hugging your knees in quite tight. I've taken my one hand and I've wrapped it around my other wrist because that just feels nice and secure. From there, I'm sitting fairly upright, but I'm a little bit tucked under my lower back, but I'm going to exaggerate that scoop. I'm going to really pull my belly button in nice and tight. Coming up onto my toes and then coming into a balanced position. Looking down at my pubic bone, taking a breath in. As I breathe out, I'm scooping that tummy even more, which sets off the rolling effect. And I haven't quite got the balance. I did get a balance then, but I had to adjust a little bit. My legs are moving in and out. Ideally, we want to keep them exactly the same. So scooping the tummy, rolling back, a little bit better. So a couple of other variations of this. You could be here, legs out wide, hands on the floor. This one feels quite nice, but you have to again fix that shape. Otherwise, what tends to happen is people flatten out their back, kick the legs back, and use the legs to come back up. That's not what we want. We want to create this curve and we want to maintain the curve. So you could go for a little bit of a less restricted hold, if you like. So you're here. feet together, knees apart a little bit. The idea is to keep this gap the same, this gap the same, the shape of your back the same. Good. Rolling like a ball. That's number 2 of our things to do. Let's go from here. In the sequence, we go from rolling like a ball. In fact, we're here. We extend one leg out and we roll down through the spine. Ideally, and I'm going to just extend that leg and come back up again, try and come back up again, swapping legs over. Ideally, we're looking for that to recreate that same shape in the spine. And then we're off for our single leg stretch. Hold one knee in, take the opposite hand to the knee, take the same hand as that leg, so both hands are on that bent leg, towards your ankle, reaching forwards. That's keeping that upper body up, keeping nice and rounded. Swap sides, hold it here a moment. The shin of the bent leg is parallel to the floor. The feet are roughly at the same height. My elbows are out to the side. I'm really super scooping that tummy in at the same time. I'm not just relying on the fact that I'm pulling this knee in. And here we go. So breath out, breath in. Out for 2, in for 2. No change in the upper body at all. It's quite tough. I'm going quite fast. And cross those ankles over and let the head roll. The other interesting thing actually when you're doing the full sequence is that you don't do very many. You don't do very many of any one exercise because it's all about quality. But what I'm going to do, hopefully in these, it's probably going to take me about 4 classes to get through the whole sequence or to get through the ones that I generally do. I'm going to just work on the technique a little bit so that maybe on the 5th class we will try and work through my version of the sequence, but just do a few of each. So we've already worked on the technique. The next thing we're going to do today is our double leg stretch. I like to come into this from just a relaxed back, but lifting the upper body up, hugging the knees in, which we know already pushes the lower back into the floor, but then pulling that belly button back as for all your worth at the same time. And there's that same C curve in the spine. This is tough. We're going to extend the legs out, maybe turned out, maybe parallel, entirely up to you. Take the arms up. You could brush past your temples to go up, as if you're taking a top hat off. Try not to go too far back here because that makes you really want to put your head down and strains the neck a little bit more. So we're going up and then we're circling round. I'm going to work in turn now. I'm going to have my elbows nice and rounded. So I'm going straight up. I can just see my hands in my peripheral vision circling round. I would do breath out as I extend, breath in as I draw back in. I think that might be slightly different or the opposite way around to how some people do it, but that's fine. I'm going to do a couple more. And enough. Cross those ankles over. Let the head roll from side to side. The next exercise in the sequence is crisscross, but I'm not going to do that one today. We're coming up to sit up for spine stretch forwards. Having the legs hip width apart, and again really focus on sitting right up on your sit bones so that your pelvis is in neutral and your spine is in neutral as well. If you struggle here and you find your pelvis is a little bit tucked under, maybe bend the knees but flex the feet. Try and sit up as much as possible. If you can though, have straight legs, and we're just going to flex the feet to keep some tension and some activation in the legs. Imagine you've got, here I have one sort of, actually this might work brilliantly for my demonstration. I'm going to open my legs up a little bit wider just so that I can sit that on the floor. So imagine there's a beach ball and your arms are staying here, your arms are parallel to the floor. You're going to take a sort of roll down, but just once you've got the chin onto the chest and you started to round the shoulders forwards as if you're doing your standing roll down. From here, I'm going to reach forwards, up and over this ball. My arms are parallel. My tummy and my pelvis, I'm actually pulling back with my tummy. I'm pulling back with my ribs so that my pelvis stays in neutral, as opposed to, I'm going to put that there, as opposed to that. That's a hinge at the hip. That's me reaching all the way forwards. Without the ball there, I'm here. Look where my, actually I'm going to bring my feet together again, or a little bit closer together. Look at where my fingertips start above my shins. Taking the roll down, reaching forwards, my arms extend beyond my toes, but my pelvis stays the same. Again, I'm scooping the tummy in, I'm pulling the ribs back, I'm relaxing my head so that my ears are sort of by my biceps, holding it there for a breath in and a breath out, and then stacking the vertebrae. So pulling back from that waistband to come up to sit really nice and tall. Let's do a couple more of those. So chin onto the chest. This is hard work for not much movement. It's not a very big movement at all. Strong work, releasing back. Stack the vertebrae one on top of the other. Try and really sit up on those sit bones. So the pelvis pretty much stays in the same position. This here should be a right angle as opposed to a hinging forwards. Chin onto the chest. Keeping the shoulders down. Pulling back. It's like someone's got their hands around you or a band around your waistband. They're pulling you back in that direction. Someone else has got hold of your hands. They're pulling you forwards here. Lengthening out that spine stretch. It does what it says on the tin. It's a spine stretch forwards. And enough there. Well done. Great. Let's come back to lie on the floor. I'm going to put that over there. So let's take a seated C curve and a roll down. You can have your legs out straight actually. So the easier version would be to do as we normally do, hands underneath the backs of the knees, rounding the back. The harder version would be to have the legs straight, so it's part of our roll up, to control this coming all the way down to the floor. That's quite strong. Great. Once you're down there, bend your legs, come into the base position. Just double check that we're doing that next. Yes, we are. So we're going to take a straight bridge. That's our next classical mat exercise. First of all, just allow your spine to settle a little bit. Have a bit of a wiggle, a rock and roll from side to side. Be conscious of the shoulders equally weighted. Be conscious of the collarbone being nice and open and relaxed. Think about all of your ribs at the back. Are they all relaxed and in contact with the mat? Are the curves in place? The nape of the neck curve should be there. Maybe tuck the chin in a little bit so it's not too exaggerated. The lumbar curve, depending on how much natural lumbar curve you've got, will depend on whether that's touching the floor or not, but you know you're in your neutral when your pubic bone and hip bones are on the same plane. The soles of the feet, both feet equally weighted. Feet quite close to your hips, feet and knees hip width apart. And then pushing down through the soles of the feet, lifting the hips up, activating those buttocks, coming up into that beautiful straight line, connecting the rib cage to the hips, trying to open out of the front of the hips, checking that the leg position hasn't changed, checking there's no tension in the back of the neck, lowering the hips back down with resistance. And maintaining that resistance, maintaining that activation to come straight back up again. Lowering with resistance. So we're hinging, we're opening out the angle at the front of the hips, closing it down again. There isn't any articulation in this one. We've just done articulation in that seated position. This is a straight bridge. So that's it as far as the classical mat sequence goes, I think. Maybe the hands going up underneath the hips. I haven't actually looked at that one too much, but I do this all the time. We're going to add on today a little bit of extra for this one. So staying up at the top with your hips as high as you can. Alternating, lifting one heel and lowering. Easy peasy. Much harder, lifting the heel, lifting the foot. Or maybe, in fact, lifting the foot and keeping the foot quite low is quite difficult. Maybe lifting into a knee fold and lowering, rolling back through the foot. Maybe elbows on the floor, fingertips on the hips. Remember, your goal is to try and keep those hips stable. That's tough. We're going to do a single leg version of the bridge. So we're going to take one leg into a knee fold and then straight up to the ceiling, keeping the foot pointed. Hips are level. We're going to flex that foot, lower that whole leg to the floor at the same time as you lower your hips to the floor, lower your spine to the floor. Push back up, pointing the foot. Lifting up, back up. Flexing the foot to lower, lifting back up. So it's a single leg bridge on the foot that's staying on the floor. It is strong. We're going to do 5. I think I've got one more to go. Trying to keep my shoulders relaxed, but it's quite tough. That was my 5th one. Swapping legs over. That was also my weaker side. I wanted to show you on the camera leg first. This leg doesn't need to be at 90. It can be a little bit further away, but try and keep it straight. Flex the foot. Lower the heel and the hips at the same time, as we just did though. Don't relax completely. Point the foot to lift back up. Flex and lower. Pointing to lift back up. We want those hips to stay level. Try not to let them rock and roll about. That was 3, that was 4, one more. Oh, first run of class. 5, bend the knees, place the feet down. Extra squeeze, and I'm going to take my arms up and over, and I'm going to take a reverse peel down because that feels nice, and then I'm going to hug my knees in and have a little roll around. Oh, just massaging out that lower back. Whatever feels natural to you, please do it. Please listen to your body. Then we are moving on to our last exercise. Number 7. So the bridge, straight bridge was number 6. Number 7 is lying on your side for the side kicks, side lying kicks. Sometimes they're done kneeling. We're going to do them in a straight line today. So line yourself up with the back edge of your mat, if you have one. In a beautiful straight line. Think about what we were doing when we were standing in the warm-up. This was our preparation for this. Take your spare hand. Well, first of all, check that your hips are stacked. If you flex your feet and look down, as long as you can, I'm wobbling all over the place today, as long as you can see your feet when you're standing up, as in chest isn't in the way, or belly, then you should be able to see your feet now. If not, there's not really an answer for that one, but line yourself up with the back edge of the mat. But make sure that this underneath waist and your ribs is lifted because you've connected in your torso. You've switched the torso box on. Belly button drawing to spine, rib cage lifted, rib cage connected to the front with your hips. And then all we're doing initially is lifting and lowering that top leg, keeping the foot pointed. Use your spare hand, put it here if you need it for balance. But if you can, put it underneath your waist and notice whether there's any change when you lift that leg. If you don't keep your torso switched on, I'm really struggling with my balance today, you will find that when you lift the leg up, your waist will collapse and press into your hand. when you lower the leg, it will spring back again. And that's basically because you're tilting, you're allowing your pelvis to tilt, or you're allowing the pelvis to join in with the movement. I think that's a bit more accurate. So as same as when we were standing up, you should be feeling some work on that middle of your buttock. Then from there, let's angle the legs forward. So this is our side leg kick variation. We're going to lift the top leg up, push the underneath little foot into the floor a little bit to help you stabilise. Sweep the leg back so it's in your straight line. Your spine is in exactly the same position. We're going to flex the foot and breathe in as we do a little sniffy breath in for 2 pulses with the heel of that foot. Point the foot and sweep the leg back. Now this is what we did when we were standing. The difference is that underneath leg isn't in a straight line because that would be too difficult to balance. This is our counterbalance a little bit. Flex the foot, change the foot position at the ankle as soon as you start to move. Breathe in. Now again with your spare hand, check what's going on in that pelvis. Check what's going on in your lower back. When you bring the leg forward, do not let your lower back collapse. Don't let your upper back collapse either. No change anywhere. Pointing the foot, squeeze the leg back. Watch that the hip doesn't roll forward. You don't overarch your lower back. There's nothing going on in my torso because this is solid. This is all switched on. Breath in, breath out. Breath in, breath out. We're going to hold that leg back as far as you can. Keep those hips stacked, keep the waist lifted. Draw a golf ball size circle. I say golf ball because you'll end up drawing a tennis ball. 5 times in one direction, 5 times in the other. Maybe your buttock feels like it's on fire. Hopefully it does. That means we're getting some good work. Woo, and enough. I'm going to roll onto my back. Oh, now just, maybe you didn't feel too much stress there, but I really did. I'm going to just roll from side to side. I'm massaging my buttocks a little bit on the floor. Then I'm going to cross that ankle over the knee and just let that knee roll, come in and out a little bit. Then I'm going to let my legs sway from side to side. So yes, it's good to get that muscle use, that muscle cramping a bit and that, you know, building the strength. But equally, if it's too cramped up and really going when you go to the other side, you'll be completely distracted by that. And it's also good to just get that blood flow, loosen it up a little bit. Last one I'm going to do here, or last couple I'm going to do here, if you can, interlace the hands behind that bent leg. Lift the legs up, circling the foot that's in the air. It's rude not to while you're here. And then I'm going to take hold of that shin and that foot. Push the knee away with using my muscles. That in itself is already a really strong stretch. I'm going to fix the legs in this figure of 4 and circle around. Some parts of the circle are relatively easy, some parts are really tight. Just try and breathe. Whew, and then we've got all that to do on the other side. Hurrah! I'm going to twiddle over to the other side. So beautiful straight line to start with, lining yourself up on the back edge of the mat. Hopefully I'm going to be a bit more balanced on this side, but maybe not. Maybe that was already my good side. My main focus is to lift my waist away, lift the ribs away by connecting in the centre. I'm going to keep my hand underneath that waist and I'm going to lift and lower the top leg. Yes, I am slightly more balanced on this side, which is good. That would have been quite worrying if I'd been even more wobbly. Lifting and lowering. So when you're lying on your side, oh perhaps not, when you're lying on your side, that leg will go a little bit higher than it did when we were standing in the warm-up, but the change in my torso is the same. There is no change in my torso. No dropping this underneath side, no shortening on the waist at the top either. Brilliant. Bring the legs forward, angle the legs forwards. This should feel quite comfortable, quite balanced. Push down that little toe side of that underneath leg, keep it nice and straight. Take the top leg back, level with your hips, start in line with your spine and in line with the edge of the mat. Use your spare hand to just check that everything is staying in place. Sniffy breath in twice as you flex the foot and go forwards. Point the foot, sweep the leg back, not too far. Keep the leg at the same height. No change in that lower back, no change in the torso. Activate the buttocks to sweep the leg back. So the torso box is switched on, activated. There's no rocking and rolling forwards or backwards. Breathing, breath in, breath out. I'm really rubbish at the breathing because I'm too busy chatting away. But try and, especially if I've told you the breathing, try and focus on the breathing and do the correct breathing. Or you could try it the other way, the breathing, absolutely fine. Find what works for you. Just make sure you're not holding your breath. Okay, I'm going to hold that leg back. This is the tough bit. Second side is always worse. Imagine golf ball, which will end up tennis ball. Only 5 in each direction. Really don't need to do too many of these. That should be really activating that gluteus medius, a very important muscle for a lot of things. And relax. Great job. This is my tighter hip, so this is going to feel slightly different. I'm going to put the ankle across. Just coming into this position for me is already quite tight and quite stressful. I'm already getting a nice stretch there. I'm just rolling from side to side to try and release it a little bit. It's also giving me a nice massage on that side as I take my legs over to that way. Breathing, trying to relax. Hands behind the knee, resting your head down, but if not, you could stay up there for a little bit. Don't hang there for too long, it's quite uncomfortable. The spare foot that's in the air needs to be circled. Give it a job to do. Takes your mind off of the stress of the stretch. Holding on to that foot and that shin, actively pushing the knee away with your muscles. Don't just do this because that doesn't do anything other than you're just cheating. And then we're circling around, breathing through it. And enough. Wonderful. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me. See you again soon.